Shadow of the Tomb Raider is the best Tomb Raider game I've ever played. The minute-to-minute gameplay and gorgeous visuals are more impressive and fun than ever before. However, Shadow is also a game of few surprises. As long as your expectations are set for refinement rather than innovation of the Tomb Raider formula, you should be in for a fun ride. Shadow of the Tomb Raider takes place in Latin America, where Lara Croft and her friend Jonah are tracking the movements of Trinity, the evil and corrupt organization that have been working against Lara for years. Eventually, Lara finds an ancient dagger inside a tomb and, despite warnings that taking the dagger would bring about a Mayan apocalypse, she snags it to ensure that it doesn't fall into Trinity's hands. Unfortunately for Lara, not only does the dagger fall into Trinity's hands, but it falls into the hands of Dr. Pedro Dominguez, a man who is intent on combining the dagger with a silver box that will enable him to remake the world in his image. Now, Lara has to clean up her mess and get to the silver box before Dominguez, in order to, quite literally, save the world. Unfortunately, like the previous two games in the Tomb Raider reboot, the narrative is Shadow's weakest link. While the game tries to set up Lara as a darker anti-hero with a deadly selfishness and obsession with beating Trinity, it never really feels genuine. Any brief moments of darkness that Lara shows is quickly drowned out by the cartoonish evil nature of Trinity, and since Lara's friends are quick to forgive and forget, it's hard to feel like I should be any different as a player. The game clearly wanted me to question Lara's status as the protagonist, but it never got there for me. While there were multiple chances for the writers to take a gut punch, they ultimately veered towards a more by-the-books action story, rather than something more innovative. The narrative also isn't done any favors by a generally weak cast of characters. For the most part, all of the side characters in Shadow feel bland and forgettable, only really showing generic characteristics and existing just to progress the plot. Even the major players, who have moments that are supposed to be emotional, all sound like they were written by the same person, and they failed to really connect with me. The only real exception to this is Lara and Jonah. In this game, the writers put an emphasis on their strong but platonic relationship and used it as a way of showing a more personal side to both of their characters. Hearing Jonah talk about his time in the Boy Scouts and seeing Lara open up about her parents' death go a long way in developing both of their characters, and these moments made their relationship one of the strongest parts of the game.
Can you tell us what happened?
All I saw, claws, teeth.
That's helpful. Hey, some consideration here.
They hit us, just screaming, bones.
It's over. You're safe.
God.
It's all right. It's all good.
You don't belong here.
For every flaw Shadow's story might have, its gameplay has twice as many strengths. When reviewing Rise of the Tomb Raider, I brought up the old mantra, gameplay is king, and this game shows once again just how true that statement is. The gameplay loop in Shadow hasn't really changed from the previous two games. Gawk at a new set piece, climb a few walls, shoot a few bad guys, solve a puzzle, rinse, repeat. While the game's philosophy might be the same, Eidos Montreal obviously put an incredible amount of time and detail into perfecting the game visually and mechanically. Traveling from one stunning landscape to the next never lost its charm, and the sheer visual spectacle of taking in the Amazon jungle was truly something special. The combat system also had a refreshing openness to it. With a silent bow, a rapid-fire rifle, a hard-hitting shotgun, and a well-balanced pistol, along with an ever-changing array of environmental hazards and hiding spots, it really feels like you can approach combat your own way. While I had the most fun lurking in the shadows, slowly picking off enemies one by one, someone else could absolutely go in guns blazing and still have a blast. Additionally, the progression system allows the player to spend skill points and resources on new abilities and upgrades for Lara and her gear, giving you a sense of ownership over your playstyle that you don't get from similar games like Uncharted. The progression system is just deep enough to be rewarding, but not so complex that it becomes a nuisance. However, perhaps even stronger than the combat is Shadow's puzzles. Between the puzzles found in the main story and the many optional challenge tombs, Shadow shows off some of Tomb Raider's most creative and rewarding puzzles yet. The challenges were varied, sometimes using physics, sometimes memorization, sometimes timing, and whenever I was stumped, it was usually due to looking at a puzzle the wrong way, rather than from poor design. Eidos Montreal also expanded upon the semi-open hubs established in Rise, giving the player both vast jungles and lively towns to explore. The attention to detail put into everything from daily jobs of townspeople to their fashion and even the wildlife in the jungle make all of these hubs feel like real places. Even if some of the side stories contained within these hubs aren't the most interesting, the presence of these areas is still a nice addition that makes the world much more immersive. With Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Eidos Montreal chose to lean into what makes the modern Tomb Raider series fun and engaging, rather than try to reinvent the wheel. The result is a beautiful, fun, and mechanically tight action-adventure game with a serviceable narrative that doesn't quite live up to its potential.